Hey there. Welcome to another episode of Heart and Hustle, Visionary Healers, Movers, and Shakers. I am your host, Paulette Rees-Denis, here to bring you magic makers from around the globe, people who are creating change, who have small businesses, large businesses, hobbies, but they are creating the life of their dreams. And that, my friends, is what living is all about. So let us know how you like this episode. Please subscribe, and we'll see you there. Thanks for joining. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of Heart and Hustle. Visionaries, healers, movers, shakers, all the magic makers that I love to bring to you. I am Paulette Rees-Denis. And if you don't know me, I am your magic maker, your movement motivator, your passion instigator, your lifestyle transformational coach, and also podcast host. And I love bringing you beautiful people who are creating change in their lives, who are creating change in the world, who are making a difference and living the life of their dreams. And that's so important. It's so special that I get to have these conversations with them and also get to share these conversations with you. And so I'm so excited today because I get reconnected with Joy Stone here, who, God, how many years ago?
It was 2020 when we met because
It
it was
was
right.
right before COVID. It was right when
Yes.
COVID hit. That's right.
Yes.
We
Same
went,
month.
we went like same week. Same week. We got connected. We were working on our books together in a writing retreat on the East Coast, and it was really special. And I totally zoned in on her. And you know me, I love to like kidnap people and bring them into my life. And then we were connected for a while, and then we lost each other for a couple years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here you are.
Here we are. I'm so happy to reconnect. And this is a fun way to do it too.
I know it is. And welcome, and thank you for coming in and spending time with us today. So I could read your bio and whatever, but why don't you just give us the juice?
Oh, all right. Well, this is fun. Thank you for having me. And yes, we met writing our books. And my book is called If I'm So Spiritual, Why Am I Still So Anxious? And I know. My background is in yoga, psychology, and positive psychology, and really spiritual psychology. And I came to all of that through my anxiety, like having been a seeker for a long time, but it was really my anxiety that led me down my spiritual path or my self-seeking path. Um, and I fell in love with, I had done so many traditional things to sort of figure out my anxiety, and I was working and working and working on my anxiety. And I call it my anxiety for a long time, right? But I kept working on myself. And when I discovered yoga and really the bigger aspect of yoga beyond the poses are wonderful. I started to discover that what I was missing was really knowing myself. And so it was really through the practice of that journey of finding yoga, and it's become my absolute passion for all these like last 20 years, is changing the paradigm from working on myself like a project, trying to solve the anxiety problem in my life and really getting to know myself. And that's why I titled the book, If I'm So Spiritual, if I have all this information, if I've done all this work, why then am I still so anxious? And so now today, that's sort of my passion, is sharing all of that with women, and men,
Well,
but
what's
women.
the answer?
It really is that anxiety is a messenger, it truly is. It's like anxiety, and it shows up in so many ways. Like anxiety is just an increased form of fear because it's still mind created. It's
Mm.
not just physiological. It's not just biological. It truly is not just circumstantial. It truly is like it starts in our mind. And that's where yoga or spiritual teaching tells us that all of our suffering arises is in the level of our thinking. And so to me, anxiety became a messenger. And as long as I kept thinking that anxiety was a problem that I had to figure out, that problem, as we know, just expanded. I never got to the solution because I was always working at the level of the problem. So I was starting to go, oh, anxiety is showing me where I am in relationship to myself, you
Mhm,
know? And
mhm.
so that became sort of this journey of figuring that out. Yeah.
And so how do you bring that into your work, your coaching, your writing?
Yeah. Well, I think it's all sort of a spiritual malady, like I said. Like I think like when I say it's a messenger, for me, I realize what I actually have is a spiritual malady. And what spirituality is it's a deep exploration into who we are
Mhm,
at a soul level beyond just this body, this mind. It's like we have a truth inside of us
mhm.
that is meant to be like guiding the way. And that truth inside of us truly is wise, all knowing, always peaceful, always full of wholeness and completeness. But I think we lose touch with that, you know?
So
And
much.
so, yeah, so practically speaking, spirituality or spiritual coaching is really about helping primarily, like I said, I work with women, but anyone getting back in touch with that essential nature that is the actual solution to every problem we ever have on this planet. We have got to come back to understanding our own sense of self with a capital S.
Yes.
And so I
Okay,
think that's a key.
so, I mean, and so we're both coaches and we both kind of work in the same idea. But what, um, oh my God, so many questions. da- so how do you blend that with your yoga?
Well, yoga, and this is where, so when we think about yoga in the West, oftentimes we think about it primarily as poses.
Hmm, hmm.
So poses is one aspect of yoga, and yoga, the word yoga means to, it means to link or to yoke or to connect, but it's
Mm,
also, yoga is sort of the path too. So it's but it means to come, it means to connect back to who you are. And I primarily teach the yoga psychology, which is anchored in something called the Yoga Sutra. And the Yoga Sutra is one of the first texts of psychology. And I learned recently too that the word psychology, psychology, psyche means soul. The
mhm.
essence of the word psyche means soul, and ology means to study. So psychology really is study of the soul. So
Ooh, I love that.
isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
So the yoga psychology, the first teaching, and there's different teachings, practices that help us to cultivate what yoga tells us we need to actually transcend suffering, which is, and again, suffering shows up as anxiety, depression, disconnection from self, burnout. I mean, there's so many ways that suffering arises for us. But what we need to actually transcend that is we have to start to develop discernment. And
Mm,
yoga calls this viveka. And discernment means I have to be able to discern between that which I am and that which I'm not. And we tend to suffer because we get confused about what we are, and who we are not. So, for example, I identified as someone with anxiety. I was like, I have anxiety. I've got to deal with this anxiety. And my whole identity, not my whole identity, but a lot of my identity was on
yeah. Yeah.
managing the anxiety, working on the anxiety. I have anxiety. My anxiety is triggered, or why am I still so triggered? Versus that's a very temporary,
Mhm.
constantly changing aspect of who I am, but there's something else that I am. And so it's that understanding who I am. And that's what the yoga psychology, working at the level of the mind and the
Yes.
soul, starts to help us get into.
Well, and I think so much. I don't know if it's just as we've gotten older or uh, we start to identify with what's wrong with us
Yeah.
from what the doctors say.
Mhm.
And oh God, that's so important. It's like, oh, I have diabetes or I have, sciatica or I mean, yes, those things are
Right.
part of the body experience, but that is not who you are.
That's right. That they're not who you are. And this cause of suffering is that we identify. So it's not the thing itself that brings us suffering, it's our identification with it. And
Yes.
that's where we
Yes.
have to. because
because
we have to remember. Yeah.
we have to put a label on things. We have an ego. Boy, I mean, uh, people are so afraid to say, no, doctor, that is not who I am.
Mhm.
Let's solve this. And the doctors don't know how to solve that, right? And then you go into more spiritual practices or more alternative practices. Uh, but we just get so caught up in what is being offered to us.
We do. And even kind of where I got to sort of that, what you're talking about, and even going like further down that road is whether it was me getting treatments from, my doctor or my therapist, my traditional therapist at the time or whatever, moving more into the spiritual realm, say the yoga, the meditations, the retreats, the different holistic teachings and practices or modalities I was seeking out. What started to happen is I started to just replace one for the other. So it's very easy, even still, to bypass the deeper work when we think
Mhm.
going to the yoga class is what's supposed to fix me. The mala beads are supposed to be doing something, the essential oil. You can have all of those things and still not address the bigger picture because we
Right.
tend to think that the thing itself out here is supposed to be doing the trick. So we replace one for the other. And it's
Oh,
like,
God, that's so good. Joy.
that was the crux of like when I hit that bottom and that spiritual, okay, why am I so spiritual here? I'm doing all this stuff and I'm still anxious. And there was a level of like shame and confusion that came with that, especially as a teacher. I was a yoga teacher at the time, but I went through a program, a positive psychology program, which is really about how our brain actually makes distinctions in our life. It's not about putting your head in the sand and just being permanently positive. It's about making empowered distinctions and how we're actually seeing the world. And this is important because someone who has anxiety or lives in fear, whether that shows up as self-doubt, overthinking, comparing, indecision, we tend to look at the world in a more pessimistic viewpoint. We may not even know it because I wasn't really even clear on that, but something that I learned in positive psychology is that while traditional teachings might say, you have anxiety, therefore you think negatively, like you have anxiety, that's why you think negatively.
Mhm.
You flip that, and it's more like you think negatively, that's why you have anxiety. So do you see, like, if you have anxiety, so you think negatively, you're still kind of thinking that anxiety is the problem, but it's that I actually see the world in such a way. I've learned to see myself in the world. I've learned to process things in such a way that creates the anxiety. And I can learn to process things and see anything differently, just like Wayne Dyer said, change the way you see things and those things change.
Yeah, yeah,
But if I
yeah.
think anxiety is causing it and not me, then I never take ownership of it.
Well, that's it. Yeah, put the blame on something else.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
put a label on something else, right? Oh,
Yeah,
totally. Oh my God. So
that's
good.
what
Are
we
you guys hearing this? This is really good. It's
that's what
good
we think,
stuff.
right?
Oh, it's so good. Wow. So you wrote this book how many years ago?
Oh my
when
God.
did
Like,
we put our
well,
book out?
2019, we started writing them, and then 2020, they were published
Yeah.
right before COVID.
Yeah. Okay,
Man.
so what what's been hard for you since then? And what's been the heart for you since then? So heart and hustle, of course, is what we're talking about
Yeah.
here. What's been hard? What have you worked on, overcome, gone through to keep building your business and your passion?
Yeah. Well, that's a good, I mean, I think that's a really
Woo!
good question because I think we all, I mean, it doesn't matter what accomplishment we have. Like, I could think, oh, I wrote a book. So therefore, now it's going to get easier. I wrote this book and my
I
business is
know.
just going to take off. Right. It's like, actually, I think I kind of thought that when I wrote the book. I thought, oh, once I write this book, like, people are going to see me differently, or I'm going to have this authority or something. But what I realize is just like the tool that I might be picking up to think that's going to fix my anxiety or the anxiety I'm experiencing is the book is just this thing that it's a thing that I wrote, which is important, but I still have to learn, and I had to learn to still show up and sit in the seat of teacher, of authority. Like, trust that what I put in the book,
Mhm.
it's okay for me to say. It's okay for me to have this opinion. It's okay for me to have this experience and speak it. And so I think since writing the book, it's helped me to become more established in who I am, because I've had to walk through a lot of fear and doubt, because it's normal. We have a brain, so we're going to have fear and doubt.
Mhm.
But just because we have an accomplishment doesn't sometimes mean the fear and doubt goes away. It means that we have to keep learning on our path to become bigger than the fear and doubt. And I think that was sort of the mistake I made early on, was thinking, like I said, I wrote this book, so all that's just going to go away. But it doesn't. But it does in a way, because we keep proving to ourselves, the more we show up in our business, the more, because the business, if we're in this kind of work, is really an extension of our story. It's an extension of
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
what we're here to say and do and teach, that can only be taught through us. So we really do have to be established. So that being said, and the second thing I will say about this, because I just had this revelation recently, because it's very easy if you're in this kind of work, especially as a coach, a mentor, teacher, this capacity, to look out on social media. And there's a lot of people talking about making six figures in this amount of time and
Oh
building
God.
this
Oh
system
my
and these
God. I know.
funnels and
You
doing all the things.
gotta block it all out.
You got to block it all out. And one thing is I realized is it's very easy, again, to lose yourself in all of that. But I realized, now it's not that I don't obviously desire money, because I would love for my family. I love for my family to have the capacity to have good food and
Well,
travel.
there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. But what I realized is it doesn't move me. And this is where I started to lose my passion for a moment, when I started to get really caught up in trying to do things the way everybody else was telling me to do things in my business. And it was producing some anxiety in me, because I was getting disconnected from my truth. Because here's what I discovered: although I like money and I desire to have more money and do good work and receive money, is when I say it doesn't move me, it doesn't get me out of bed. That's not what gets me up and wants me to sit and do this work. It's really my desire. What moves me is truly making a difference in the way that we're talking about anxiety. What truly moves me is teaching spiritual principles from yoga psychology. What truly moves me is seeing women who have been stuck really learn these something new through this work and get a moment of like, oh, I'm having like a shift in the way I'm seeing this. That moves me. It moves me to be in my the way universe comes through me to be here. And so money is a byproduct of that. And that's what I'm learning more and more and more. If I'm just chasing, like, let me just keep figure out how to make more money in my business, that wasn't moving me from my heart. So it's very subtle though, because we have to learn to really follow our passion
Mhm.
and our true desire and purpose, and not just like what everyone else is saying to do. So it's been a subtle distinction for me, especially over the last couple of years, because I think even going through that book program, which we went through, which was good, I stayed on and did that whole marketing part, which was a
Right.
hindsight 2020. Nothing's truly a mistake. It's all we can grow from everything. But looking at that, that was really one of the things I look back and go, wow, I wasn't making a decision from my own authority. I was making that decision out of FOMO, out of fear of missing out, fear of,
Mhm. Mhm.
and so I've learned through those sort of mistakes to trust myself more and to lead with my heart. And that's made me a better coach. That's made me a better person. That's made me stronger and more able to carry my message, and being honest about those things.
Yes. Oh my God. That's so good. That's so poignant. Lots to think about right there.
So much, so much to think about.
So good. All right. All right. So I want to know, oh, well, I want to know lots of things, but um, what does Joy do for herself now? Because part of this podcast is always about, what do you do for self-care? What do you do for self-love outside of the business?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, outside of the business for me, especially more recently, I've gotten, I have a son who's 10, and having a child who's younger takes a lot of our time and energy for a long time, but he's getting older now. So honestly, what I've done lately that has really been really good for me is I went back to a yoga community. Like I went back to an in-person studio, going to regular classes, building my community again. Cause I also relocated from Los Angeles to Nashville. And then my son was young and then COVID happened and then just different things. So now it's just, but honestly, for me, having a really sacred, it doesn't have to be big, but a community of women, like-minded women,
Mhm.
where it's real conversation, it's real connection.
Mhm.
That is just so important for my self-care because I also had I have a bunch of friends, you know, and being a mom, you meet a lot of mom friends. Like I'll just speak to the women out there that might be experiencing this too. You get a lot of mom friends and they're good, they're wonderful people, but you're not actually always connecting with people that are who you would choose, but it's the time of your life. And honestly, I for a long time, like some of these past years, I've never felt lonelier because I'm around people all the time, but I'm not really connecting. So I needed that connection again.
Mhm.
So my community has been such a piece of self-care. And then of course we can say the traditional like get up in the morning and center myself, which really is important for me because I do need quiet time. And I love journaling. I actually love meditating. But community for me has been just essential and so key lately. I love it.
I totally hear you on that one. And that's one thing I've been doing too, where I live. Because when I moved to Palm Springs was also right before COVID, which is when I met you. And, you know, uh, totally lost touch with that in-person thing. Lots
Yeah.
of beautiful, beautiful virtual, opportunities and possibilities, and lots of work on virtually, which is still a major part of my business. But um, developing a women's network, a gathering of women, creative women, entrepreneurial. I can't say that, entrepreneurial women,
That's a hard word.
and and I love my men friends. I have lots of men friends too, but
Yeah.
women need to connect. Women need to be in circle.
There's something about really finding your tribe or what, you know, whatever word you give that, like of where there's just an unspoken connection too in some ways. And you're on almost, we're all on our own journey, but like there's just a wavelength, there's a connection. Like I really, really missed that. And I really missed, like you're saying, I do a lot of online and there's such value in that. And I still do. And I love it. And I'm grateful for it. And there's something special about being in that circle, about being in that community, about being in that room, walking into the studio, walking into the sacred space and feeling that in-person energy of other people that just get you and you get them. And there's just a commitment, an unspoken commitment, but you're all there because you want to grow. You want to be the best version of you, so to speak. You want to get to know who you are, at least. And that's definitely, you know, in the yoga community, what that's like for this community I'm in. And yeah, no, there's just
I
nothing
mean,
that
you want to
replaces it.
know who you are, but you also want to be seen, and you want to be heard,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
want to be part of something.
Yes, you do. We're made for that. We want to
We
be
are,
that, you know.
we are so made for that. And it's so important, I think, for us women to support each other, to uplift each other, to be inspired and to inspire each other. Uh, because we are here to create great things.
We are. And it's like sometimes, you know, I also, this is another thing I learned in my positive psychology program, which I found so fascinating was, you know, in terms of relationships, relationships are people growing machines that we don't grow without relationship. I mean, we can, but it's much easier to grow in relationship because you're also getting feedback constantly about where you are in terms of yourself. You
Mhm.
know, like for example, if I'm in a circle, there's all the positive things that come from being in community, which is like you said, like being seen, seeing others, you know, being heard, hearing others. And then there's all the wonderful triggers that come up too. Like when you're in community with women, I'll say for me, like when I'm in community, I get triggered, you know, and not always, not because I'm like, oh, a bad person, just that's my we all have stuff we've grown up with. We all have
Uh,
stuff and beliefs about, am I fitting in? Are they inviting me? Did I get excluded? What are they talking about? How come I don't know about that? Like, oh,
mhm.
look what they're doing. I should be doing more with my life. Like in community,
Competition, comparison, FOMO, all those things,
yes,
right?
we start to see our own reflection because it's not that that person is causing that trigger. It's that there's something in us that is arising that needs our attention. And that's what I mean about relationships or people growing machines is that I sometimes can't see that thing that arises if it doesn't get activated through that relationship. But that's how, even like Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it'll run your life and you'll call it fate. Our
Mm,
shadows are not bad, but they show up so much faster in relationship where we can alchemize them, where we can heal. And healing means I'm just remembering my wholeness. I'm being coming back to wholeness. So it's for me that's I just know for a fact that I have grown more because I've been in so many communities over my spiritual journey,
mhm,
and even look at things like 12 step. I mean, 12 step programs coming from my childhood of growing up with alcoholic parents and then getting into 12 step, different variations of 12 step support
mhm.
is there's the community aspect. There's the sponsor mentor. So we have a teacher student relationship. There's community, and
There's
then there's principles to live by. And that's exactly what yoga teaches us. You have a teacher student relationship, you have your satsang, your community, and you have principles to live by. And all of these things help us to develop ourselves, to see the light that's already within us, to activate the light, to really accentuate the light of who we are, and to help us to see the dark side, which isn't bad. It's just, oh, what's blocking so I can actually let the light shine more. But I think it's just it's incredible to have those things.
yeah, and I mean, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like having that circle, that community, that support, that inspiration,
Yeah.
oh, that network, which is what I'm always about is networking and bringing people together. I'm the tribal hostess,
You're
you
so good
know.
at that.
I love it. I love it. I just love seeing people connect and find who they're wanting, who they're needing, who's going to light them up, whatever. So that's good. So, okay,
So
Joy,
good.
Joy, Joy, Joy. Um, what's next for you?
Oh my gosh, what's next? Well, I'm going to continue as I'm doing, which is sharing yoga psychology because again, so many people don't know what it is and that's just like for whatever reason my passion, it's what is in me. So I'm going to always continue sharing my yoga psychology and through coaching, through my I have a community called Soul Subscription. It's just women that gather, but it's online. And then I just bought a yoga studio. So that's my next thing. I'm actually just bought the yoga studio here in my town and I take ownership over on September 16th. So we're going to have regular yoga classes, of course, the asana, the postures, and I'm going to bring in a lot of circles, a lot of workshops, a lot of immersions into the deeper practices of yoga and in person. And that feels really fun. That feels so good. I'm so excited.
That
And
is
I'm
so
scared.
awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Well, I know you're going to make it super fabulous and successful. That's beautiful. And do you have a copy of your book?
Oh,
Right?
yeah. Yeah.
Show your book.
Oh, it's so cute.
There it is. There it is. And that's available through you, but also on Amazon,
Yeah,
right?
you can grab it for free on my website, or you can go to Amazon, and get it in all forms.
And so, and then people can also join your community.
Yeah, yeah, they can join my community. And that's all on my website. Soul Subscription is really where I teach yoga psychology principles, and there's Dharma talks, and uh, just all the teachings are there. How to apply it practical in your life, spiritual principles to live by that are grounded, that are anchored.
And that's fantastic. And then, but you're also doing it, are you still doing a weekly coffee thing?
Yes. Yep. So I have a week. You're like, what is that?
Sorry.
No, it's good. I'm impressed that you know. So I have a weekly call. I call it Coffee with Joy, and it's free. We hop on Zoom, and you come as you are, you bring your coffee, your tea, whatever. And I give a Dharma talk. And a Dharma talk is just me talking about, again, these spiritual principles, these teachings from yoga that are about how, like, for example, the first teaching in yoga is Atta Yoga Nushasanam, that's Sanskrit. And it means there's a place in you that is not suffering, and you need to get to know that place now. Atta means now. Yoga means to link with that place inside of you that's free. Because, like the Buddha said, don't look for peace in the world. I mean, that's a directive. Like Buddha's teaching is don't look for peace in the world. It doesn't exist. Look for it within yourself.
Right. Yes.
So it's like the teaching is it's the inside out. So we talk about, like in the Dharma talk, how do we actually apply that? Like these sound beautiful, but what does that mean? And what does that mean for my life? So they're little like 15, 20-minute. I think last week it went 30 minutes, depend. And it's in the Zoom room because, interestingly enough, my Facebook got hacked and I lost my Facebook, which was kind of a pain.
Wow.
And it's been a blessing in some ways. But it got totally hacked. And so I couldn't even access my Facebook group. So now you can sign up for those coffee chats and get the Zoom link on my website too. And they're really fun.
Great, great, great. So podcasts, coffee things, subscription things,
The
books.
book.
I
Yeah,
love it. I love it. You're crazy like me, girl.
I am. I love it. We're creative, and just sharing, teaching and growing and sharing what we're learning. That's what's important.
Exactly right. Exactly
Yeah.
right. Here to support and encourage and uplift
Yes.
and share these beautiful messages. Oh, you are just a gorgeous light. You're a shining light.
So are you. Thank you. You're so bright. I'm over here all in my dark clothes. I'm looking at you and all that. You're so bright.
I'm like, you know, I don't have my office anymore right now. And I'm just like, wherever I can find a place to be, it's just like,
It's like perfect. Yeah, it's perfect.
so, all right, my love. Well, my people over here in Heart and Hustle Land, thank you for sharing some more time with us. Thanks, Joy, for being here with me. So
Thank you
great
for
to
having me.
reconnect.
Love it.
And I will, on my blog post, of course, I will hook you up with all of Joy's things, which are amazing. And please, join her and ask her if you need some guidance, whatever. And me as well as your transformational lifestyle coach. And also remember that we are now taking registrations for the women's retreat to Costa Rica in November, which I'm very excited about. To step into our creative divinity, our women's beautiful magic making space, in this gorgeous space, this magical space. So that's going to be awesome. And until we meet again, many blessings, and may you shine your light. May you step into your divinity, step into your empowerment and your beauty and your creative zone of genius and all the things, right, Joy?
Yes, absolutely.
All the things. All right, my loves. Thank you again for spending time with us. Thank you, Joy, for being here with me. And until we meet again, I love you all. Mwah.